Welcome to the Live Full, Work Fun podcast. This is the show to encourage you to live your life to the fullest and do fun work that fuels your lifestyle. Hi, I'm your host, Gayla Scrivener. Every week, you'll be introduced to amazing guests, useful resources, and inspirational stories. You'll discover opportunities and perspectives to shape your version of living full and working fun. There, and welcome to the show. If this is your first time here, I'm glad you're joining me for the very first time. Thanks for checking out the show. And if you're returning, welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Are you a part of the Live Full, Work Fun community yet? Yeah, it's over there on Facebook. I'd love for you to hop over there and join the Live Full, Work Fun Facebook group. And don't be shy in making comments. Let's get the conversation going. You're in for a special treat meeting today's guest, Paul Siebert. Purveyor of acoustic-based family entertainment to the Midwest and Central Nebraska for over 30 years. With a repertoire of hundreds of songs, his experience in live performance, from living history events, concert stage, singer-songwriting, classrooms to retirement living, all ages seem to be at home with Paul's inviting charisma. Having a disarming habit of drawing listeners out of themselves into his show, Paul may be just what the doctor ordered for your next event. From his early days, Paul Siebert has emerged as one of the Midwest's most respected and loved folk singers. As an instrumentalist, he is a master of several traditional instruments, including the hammer dulcimer. His songwriting and showmanship create an atmosphere that envelopes you in the music and draws you away into a simpler, lighter place. Totally at ease on stage, classroom, or in a corner of a local club, his ability for interacting with any crowd is amazing. Laughing and joking, playing around, taking requests, bringing out a funny hat for an old Western tune. Yeah, things are never boring at a Paul Siebert show. That is for sure. Paul started playing guitar at the age of 5. He was so captivated by the sound of his dad's J160 Gibson acoustic guitar, he would sneak it out of its case while his dad was at work. He learned to play guitar from old folk music books, listening to the sound of the guitar, reproducing the music he heard from old record albums, and was self-taught for many, many years. At the age of 12, he was able to take several years of classical guitar lessons from Joan Alexander, a classically trained guitarist violinist from New York who had moved into his area after retirement. Paul's music career started at age 14 when he was recruited to play lead electric guitar and sing for a local country music band. He wasn't able to commute by car yet, so his parents had to chaperone him and, take him to gigs. Splitting his time as full-time high school student, he played football, track, weightlifting, motocross, and helping his family manufacturing business. Paul was able to pursue a lot of interests, performing in a number of local country and rock bands, high school stage band, concert band through his high school years, brought him to graduation. It was then he had to make a decision. Was music his career? Well, being from the Midwest, he was not likely to make a living as a performing artist. So, Paul chose the career in manufacturing, still performing at local clubs during college. After marriage and 3 children, he realized his passion was truly music. A career as a manufacturing engineer lasted him until his youngest daughter was in high school. Then, Paul went after his passion, music. He started his solo touring full-time in 2004 with the release of his solo album, Echoes of an Era, accompanied by the re-release of an earlier album, Reason to Play, where Paul had been the lead guitarist and vocalist for the band by the same name. also promoting a wedding music CD, a Christmas CD, and a live version of the Echoes album. His interest had changed over the years. He was now a fully acoustic solo show using up to as many as 8 different acoustic instruments and as little electrical support as possible, making his live performance his home. His songwriting abilities and knowledge of pop music of all genres has brought his music into the lives and homes of the broadest audience any a regional performer the Midwest has ever known. Traveling from his home in Lincoln, Nebraska, Paul is listed in the Nebraska Arts Council and the Nebraska Humanities Programs. He is a regular living history reenactor at the Stir Museum in Grand Island, Nebraska, and Fort Atkinson Museum in Fort Calhoun, Nebraska, as well as many more Nebraska museums. He can be found at local coffee houses and corporate and private events across the Midwest. I am so anxious for you to meet Mr. Paul Siebert. Paul, I first met you in January at a muzzleloaders convention in Nebraska, and I have to say that was the highlight of my trip, but I know it was the highlight of my husband Robert's trip because he got to sit and play music with you. So I have been looking forward to this interview. Thank you so much for joining me.
I was equally amazed to meet up with you folks. I do festivals all over the United States, and I see people, and I never in my life dreamed that I would sit next to a couple that was into the same things that I was into. And as Robert and I visited it, just like, you guys do that? Cool. And of course, you guys have, friends in the muzzleloading business. And then coming to find out Robert was close friends with a really close friend of mine, Matt Bergen. That was amazing.
Yes.
So
I hope I'm not bursting a surprise, but I think that guitar strap got shipped to you from Matt.
Well, yeah, I ordered a powder horn strap.
Oh, that was what it was.
Yeah, and I got that already. I had actually tried it on one of my banjos too, and Matt said, "No, I want it on the powder horn. It's not really designed for a banjo," but I thought it looked really cool. So,
well, we got to see it before you did.
Yeah.
It was really nice. Yes. And Matt had texted a picture to Robert and he's like, "Yeah, this is not for you, but look," because it had a guitar on it. Paul, I would love for you to tell a fun fact about yourself that maybe not everybody knows.
Oh, man. Well, I have 4 grandchildren, and that's really been the highlight of my last few years, watching children grow for the second time. The first time, when the kids were small, you go through all that, all the pressure and the hassle, and then you get them out of school and you get them on their own. And then it's kind of this long void. And now when the grandkids come over, all the memories start pouring back, about, all right, we need to clean up toys and all this different thing, and then when the day's done and you're extremely tired, you send them back home with the folks, just like my parents used to say. So that's kind of, I guess, a fun fact about me, that I'm just really enjoying my grandkids. And I have one granddaughter that I think is going to be a musician. Yay!
Yay! Oh,
that's
my
really
goodness.
Tough to find somebody that's a musician. I trained all my kids music, and none of them really stuck with it. They enjoyed it, but it really wasn't none of their things. And to me, it's everything. And so I hopefully this one granddaughter, I think she's going to pick up on music. So
do you think that is music hereditary or learned, or a bit of both?
That's hard to say. I'm the only musician in our family.
Really?
Nobody else picked it up. I'm so jealous of these families that have, all the kids play something and they all sing something. And I think it can be taught, but it just never really happened in our family. Just no one had the, I guess, the interest that would work like that. And so, inherited, I don't know. I think artistic talent is inherited. My family is extremely artistic. My dad's an engineer. My sister was a graphic artist as well. And then my younger sister's a writer. So we have a lot of talent in our family. My great grandfather was a blacksmith as well as I am. So we had all those kind of talents, but I was the only one that ended up with any music talent.
You had worked many years as a manufacturing engineer, and then you shifted and dove right back into music. I mean, music's been in your life since you were 5. You shifted when your youngest daughter was in high school. Is that right?
Yeah, my youngest daughter was a junior in high school, and I decided, you know what, I am going to unplug out of the manufacturing. Actually, at that time, I owned a refrigeration company as well. I was just running myself ragged, and I was not enjoying what I was doing. I was making good money, but it was just running me ragged. And I just decided, I'm going to give this a try. But it took a long time to develop a market because I didn't want to just go play bars. Everybody assumes right away there's not a lot of money to be made in the music industry in the Midwest out here, unless you're a teacher, there's money to be made there. As a performing artist, though, it's almost unheard of to find somebody, if you have that kind of talent, you go to Nashville or you go to California, there's work for those kind of people up there, but there's tens of thousands of people that are extremely talented working those areas. So I had to kind of try and figure out a way to, make some money here and not be out all night regurgitating pop hits for bar scene, which is fun at times, but it's not a lifestyle.
I love how you have worked that on your website. You have like the types of shows that you can do, like a pop, variety, Western, corporate, history, and formal. Could you talk a little bit about what you do and what market you've gotten into?
Yeah, so I try to narrow it down on the website. I do show 5 different things, and some people ask, well, what is Western? Well, it involves, history style type music of what came here to the Midwestern United States, not necessarily Nebraska. I am a native of the Nebraska area and Colorado area, but what sort of music was going on here in the Midwestern United States? And quite often it comes up, people will say, well, cowboy music. And so that's just one of the probably by 10 or 12 different shows inside of the history side that I do. I do living history events. I have 6 or 7 different instruments that I focus on, that I can give the presentation, not only of the instrument, where it came from, how they're manufactured, how they're built. This is the kind of sounds they have. This is the kind of music that has been produced on it. And this is how it can be played, and it can be electrified or not. And then, so then I branch off into other areas like, well, what were cowboys actually playing out here? And, the mass media has taken that whole idea of the cowboy industry and turned it into something that it never really was. And so teaching is probably a huge part of what I do, which I found out as I was going along, that if I do a teaching program as I'm performing, I gain a lot more attention, although the venue has to be set up for a teaching event. If you show up somewhere and they expect a party and you're just background music, that's a whole nother deal. So that's why there's the little icon on the website, corporate. And that involves, hey, I can go to a dinner parties, just play background music, wedding receptions, weddings themselves are typically not a concert, that sort of thing kind of falls into those categories. Bar scenes, I just did a bunch of St. Patrick's Day stuff here, and those people want to all sit down and visit. So they're not listening to the programs. The other programs, however, though, are just that. They are instructive programs, theater type settings. I just did 2 Arts Council jobs out in Western Nebraska, where I do basically a 90-minute variety show as an advertisement, because I go through, here's what you would get if you were at a wedding. Here's the show you would get if you were at a living history event. Here's the show you would get. Here's something that I need to come into your school system. These are what your songwriting event for the kids. How about let's do a choral event using a real specific instrument that I play called the hammered dulcimer. So I use that 90 minutes as an advertisement and an entertainment. It's kind of interesting how that works. And the website was designed in that same way. And each of the icons, which was kind of interesting, you can click on the icon and it kind of branches off into what sort of thing you're going to get. So
yeah, I love that. I am a big fan of what you do on that hammer dulcimer. It's an old instrument, isn't it?
Yeah, very ancient. I do a whole entire program about how that instrument got here to the States, why it's here, who invented it. I mean, it's a really fun story to tell. Its function in the Midwestern United States here was mainly because it was a portable instrument. That was a very, if you brought a wagon from the East Coast and you're headed this way, it better have food and water in it. Very seldom did people drag instruments. They were delicate. This instrument is, if they're built well, can take a lot of abuse. The piano in the 1800s in America here was probably one of the favorite instruments. And this instrument, the hammered dulcimer, or the santur, as it's actually called, is the predecessor to the modern piano. And so people were playing piano pieces on it. And it is mentioned. It's tough to find people that when they were coming across the Midwest out here in wagons, covered wagons, or on foot or on horseback, to write down what they were doing. Sometimes they will say they were playing music, but they rarely say what they were playing, or they rarely even talk about the instruments. But that instrument in particular, yes, is quite intriguing. It's the first time I saw one, I was working, this is back in 1974. I was down in Branson, and a fellow was playing one, and I walked into Silver Dollar City, and I just got tunnel vision. I saw this guy playing this instrument, and I heard that sound, and I just, have you ever had that tunnel vision thing? It's just like everything just zooms in, and I stood and watched him for an hour play, and I was like, I got to get one of those.
Oh, that is wonderful. When you were shifting from manufacturing to music and wanting to shift and do music full time, you had said it took a while to get a following. Did you do both before you quit manufacturing to go for it full time, or did you have a break?
No, during that time when I was starting to build what sort of gigs I wanted to do, even at that time, I didn't really quite know exactly what I wanted to do. So I started off where everybody usually starts off. Well, I'm going to go play some bars. So I gathered up this basket full of pop hits and stuff that I felt I sounded good playing just by myself. I had played with many bands, and I didn't really want to go with the electric sound. I like to brag quite often that all of my music can be done without electricity, which is kind of interesting. So I use only acoustic instruments. I do play the electric guitar occasionally, but 99% of what I do is all acoustic instruments. So during that time, I thought, well, okay, this is the kind of clients I want to build. When I finally got it to the point where I was making almost as much money in my part-time as my full-time is when I finally said, okay, I'm going to make the switch. You don't want to just jump into something. I've seen that happen too many times. I had to make sure I had the backup set up, and I still do engineering consulting from time to time, which pays somewhat. And I did hang on to several of the products that I designed, and I'm still marketing and selling those. The profitability of that is very low at this point, just because of the way the markets are going. But so I rely very heavily, almost 100% on my music income. But during that time, building that up, you got to be pretty careful. You got to make sure you got a backup. I always tell anybody that's getting into the music industry, especially people that have children who are very good musicians, send them to school, send them to music school, but make sure they have a business degree on the backside, double major. You've got to have something to fall back on.
That's so smart. And I love how you've branded yourself. You've got musician, music man, or an orchestra of one. And I love that tagline on your website and how you've built your personal brand and found your niche. And I think that it is so smart. Something that popped out at me when we saw each other back in January was that you were sharing with me a little bit. It's like, man, COVID caused havoc on your business. You built up your business going out for all of these live events. And then COVID just like, bam, caused havoc. And the way that you phrased caused havoc on my business, because you view this and you're very business minded on how can I make a living at something that I am passionate about and I have fun at. But there's that business aspect. Obviously, live events was put to a halt. So how did you adapt, and how are you just waiting it out until something, the climate's different?
Yeah, I'm kind of in a holding pattern because the way this was, of course, brought on, onto our country. Our country basically was attacked. Certain areas, actually have profited massively from this, criminally or righteously. The entertainment industry, although, took it really hard, including restaurateurs, that sort of thing, music venues, because of the live aspect, because of the interaction aspect. I've been in kind of a holding pattern because it came on so quickly. It was, kind of the almost like, here, let me break your legs, but give you a set of crutches idea. It's like, I'm going to create this problem, but I also have the solution, which is something that you see quite often in cult situations. They will create a massive problem of, oh, here, I've got the answer. So I'm waiting kind of for that to kind of blow over. So there's a lot of things I could have been doing in between this time. One of them is brushing up on all the skills and all the different areas of music. However, what I did do, because I got to the point where it's going to have to either branch back into the manufacturing business. I did a bunch of research on indoor air quality, although I came to the conclusion this was not the time to do that. I also looked into doing some refrigeration work, which is what I've done in the past. All those things take full commitment. And I really didn't want to pull away from the full commitment and leave myself, so I couldn't get back into music quickly if it all of a sudden came back shortly. So I did. My wife and I purchased a rental property that we may be retiring at. And so I'm going to try and get that to a point where it's rentable. So I've got some income coming in for that sort of thing. And then in the meantime, still just kind of putting the feelers out, what sort of, venues are available, that sort of thing. About a third to half of my income this last 4 or 5 years has been retirement communities. And they have been completely shut down because of the fear that's been pushed upon them. And so I've been very reluctant to even pursue going to talk to them. I mean, some of the facilities will allow you. And so I've kind of let it out there that they need to be calling me. I'm not calling them, because at first I was involved with a booking agency that was continually calling in, hey, we have a contract with you guys. We can send an entertainer there. And we would call and call and call. And of course, these people were just under a massive amount of insanity, and they couldn't make any decisions on their own because every day things were changing. I need to get back in there to make people happy. And it's a wonderful set of venues. And so there went a huge amount of my yearly income was right there.
It is such a shame. My history is in the healthcare industry, and I just know that music is therapy as well. It's just not, you're not just making people happy. It is clearly a benefit for the well-being of a resident at a long-term care facility. And it's just a shame that the activity directors' hands are tied. They're the knot in this tug of war. They know that they want to do what they want to do for the health and well-being of the residents. So I'm hoping for the residents, for the activity directors, for you, that you'll get right back in there. But I do know from a different aspect, live events are starting to come about again. And it was great, like that muzzleloader convention. So that was a living history type of event. Several of my clients are participating now in live events.
I have been reluctant to, I did a lot of county fairs, state fairs, that sort of thing around the 5-state area. Irish festivals, those all closed down. And so I've been reluctant to go back to them. I've kind of let them all know, please call me, because over the last 2 years I've been calling and trying to say, no, we're shutting down. But sometimes those people that get involved in those things forget. And if you just give them a call or send them an email, your past, in any business, your past clientele is your first line of attack for going back for more business. And so that's what I need to do. But I just, like before, I didn't want to get myself overrun, because I owned a refrigeration business that I got myself just overrun in. I mean, I couldn't hire people to come and help me. I was getting massive amount of calls a day. I'd even put on my voicemail on this refrigeration company that I cannot come and fix your furnace unless your air conditioning equipment, unless you're my customer. And you've been my customer. And it's like, people are going, what? Who in their right mind would put something like that on there? It's like, it was better to do that than to have people call back and tell them that I can't come. And so I didn't want to get into that predicament with music business, because I'm just one guy. I can't duplicate myself. I can't create 5 more guitar players and send them out and say, okay, you go work. I mean, it's tough to have employees to say, here, you go play the hammer dulcimer at this show, you go play the guitar, you go play the button accordion here. I can't do that. I have to do it all. And so I didn't want to overwhelm myself. So.
Right. We have the capability of like turning on and off the faucet. It's like, okay, if I really need to book my time, yeah, I need to call past clients. That's where you start first and then build up. That's the place where you want to be, is that your calendar's full and that you're turning away business. You hate to turn away. You don't want to disappoint anybody. I can hear that. It's like, I don't want to disappoint anybody. So please don't ask me because I don't want to say no. But that's the place where you want to be, is to have that fan base, so that you're at a point where you do have to turn business away, or you have to be picky and choosy on how to fill your calendar. Before we run out of time, you're currently focusing on a program called Echoes of an Era, and I would really like for you to share. Tell us about that.
The concept of Echoes of an Era started many years ago. The song came to me because of a quote that I'd heard about our families. My family immigrated here from Russia in 1874 and 5 and homesteaded here in Nebraska. My grandfather and my parents spoke fluent Low German. And so growing up in the house, they spoke that quite often, and they would tell stories about Russia and why never to go back there. In fact, the activity that's happening right now and all this strangeness up there is the area we were located, just north of the Black Sea. Well, in 1874 and 5, they left that country because of communism and socialism, exactly what we're trying to be are seeing being forced down our throats here. So that whole story of the Echoes of an Era program came about because of writing that song about my family and me mentioning during my programs that my dad is a blacksmith and that I'm also a metalworking engineer. And I don't know if you're familiar with the state seal of the state of Nebraska, but right in the center of our state seal is a blacksmith. And 90% of our state does not realize or know why he is there. And so I created this program, including music, information, telling stories about my family immigrating here, immigration from other people's countries, making an entertaining show as to why the blacksmith was such an important part of Nebraska history that they would have put him in the center of the flag as the largest icon. It's a kind of a forgotten art, but if you take a look at it, actually all of European culture was brought here because of the ability of metallurgy, of working with steel. Everything revolved around steel. Still to this day, you take a look around you, everything that's here is brought to you by a trucking company or a train company, all having to do with modern metallurgy, modern blacksmithing. Everything was designed and built by a tool maker. And those people are not recognized or understood. And so the program is from, I have it school age to, adults, and it varies occasionally what group I'm talking to. Sometimes the museums won't want to know specifically about blacksmithing. I am actually working with a blacksmith right now out of Bentonville, Arkansas, that travels with me. And I'm going to be down in the Bentonville area there for the farmers market. And we do a show together. He does live blacksmithing. I tell the story, play some music. And we tell the story of the blacksmith. It's a neat program. That program is available through the Nebraska Arts Council and the Nebraska Humanities, which I'm a part of both of. So
nice. I'll be sure to have links to both of those places in the show notes. You have a CD of Echoes of an Era that I'll have a link to in the show notes as well. The
CD Echoes of an Era is actually a compilation of about 15 years of songwriting, of folk music to instrumental pieces to just a random bunch of stuff that I had put together. I finally scraped up enough money to do a fairly decent studio. I still call it a demo version, but it was all I could afford at the time. And I needed to get some of these songs out of my head that I'd been performing. And it's really tough to sell your own material when you go to venues that people want to hear what they know. Unless the venue is specifically set up for a singer-songwriter, they come expecting to hear something new. So it's gotten really tough to sell those CDs and those songs. The Echoes of an Era CD. The second part of that is the program Echoes of an Era, which is the history, and that's titled Echoes of an Era /History. That I also have a compilation CD put together of all the music and material, but because of the breaks that I had to hit here, everything kind of came to a screeching halt, and I have not completed that. But that will also come out as a booklet along with music and stuff. But there again, marketing materials and that kind of thing are hard to sell. It's tough enough to get people to the venue to see you to play. But then to try and sell them a CD or something, and because of the way the industry is going, the discs themselves are kind of going away. People would rather get online and go to a digital format. So I'm battling with how to make sure that's I can make some money at that, make it so it's profitable by doing it on the digital format. So many people are telling me now that yeah, my stuff's on Spotify, but I'm getting paid a quarter fraction of a penny for 1,000 plays. It's just like, well, we were spoiled for so many years that the record album industry was very profitable. So I've focused, instead of recording, I've focused on live performance. And unfortunately, that does not give me the ability to duplicate myself. You duplicate yourself by sending out a CD or thousands of them or hundreds of thousands of them. But now it's gotten to the point where it's just going to be live music, although the word retirement is something that we've made up. I'm not going to retire. I'm going to keep playing as long as I can.
I just loved seeing you and Robert just tinker around and play just a wide range of music. And this was just kind of off to the side and just kind of a circle jam session. And mostly people were just listening, and you let Robert use one of your guitars and letting him tinker around. And you go from an old timey song to Johnny Cash to, I don't know, I think you did Peter, Paul and Mary. I don't remember.
Yeah.
You did a
I
lot
tell
of
people
different things.
heavy metal to polka. Yeah, everything in between. Oh, I was amazed as well. It's rare that I run onto a good musician like Robert. And then the crazy thing is what people who are not musicians don't really understand is that we speak a different language.
Oh, you do?
And we don't have to talk. It just pours out of you. It's just crazy. And then when I get around good musicians, which is rare here in Nebraska, and just time that I can just sit and play, we just have a blast.
Oh, and I know. And it's just with you two bantering around, it's like you hear that or you do that. It's like you do have your own shorthand language that I'm fascinated. I have not a lick of musical talent. I had to marry somebody to have musical talent. Paul, I usually ask my guests if there is a favorite resource or a book or anything that's helped you either personally or professionally.
Probably one of my favorite resources is belonging to one particular group. I'm a manufacturing engineer. And so I belong to the Nebraska Blacksmith Association. And for many, many years, they are a modern blacksmithing group. There are old-timey blacksmithing groups. These guys are, welding shops, pre-production, small manufacturing companies. The camaraderie of being involved with other business owners. Probably, yes, there's many, many books. I mean, I've got stacks and stacks of books that I go to, but more of the personal interaction of people that I know that do business like I want to do it, or that I can see are running really good businesses. I tend to spend my time with those people and those kind of groups for inspiration. For, if I've got a question about, hey, I've got this going on, it can be something. I can go to my manufacturing friends and say, I'm still battling with, maybe marketing some music issues, so it's fun to talk with them about that, because some of these people do business down to the, five and dime types sales up to millions of dollars. And so it's like, I have all that resource of these great guys, and, so those kind of clubs and those kind of places where those people congregate, and I have just thousands of friends. For some reason, have collected friends, or have 2 or 3 close friends. I have thousands of friends. I mean, I have friends on the East and West Coast I can call today and go stay night at. But it's partially because of the music business. Hey, if I'm in LA, I got a place to stay. So it's the connection of people that's been the best resource for me. Live people. Although a lot of writing books, I'm a real big fan of Harold Bell Wright. And so I collect his books, engineering manuals, that sort of thing. I get a lot of inspiration from. So,
do you have a limit, a region that you travel to, or is it?
Yeah, I like to, because I realize what what I do is worth, I like to say I want to stay between Denver and Des Moines, Wichita and Sioux Falls, which is about, a day's travel, because usually what I can do, let's say I go to Denver, I can usually gig my way down when venues were open, especially retirement homes, senior centers, that sort of thing, schools. I could call and say, hey, I'm going to be through your area. We won't have any travel expenses. This is the cheapest I can get, for your venue. Versus flying, I used to go to I played the Balloon Fiesta in Albuquerque for 6 or 7 years, and I would gig my way down through Texas and then end up in Arizona and maybe Denver on the way back. That got to the point where I was spending as much money as I was making. That was too far. And I traveled by airplane a few times. I'd pack all my stuff and get it on an airplane. I didn't enjoy that. Or again, I was spending as much as I was making. So I focused on just closer venues and less outlay for cash for travel expenses, because that's my really only expense. Yeah, I might have an expense or two here on a nice instrument, but travel and the housing and the food and that stuff when you're on the road is your only expense. And so I tried to cut that to a minimum.
That is wonderful. If anybody wants to contact you, they go to your website?
Yeah, on my website's paulsiebertlive.com. And I prefer a handshake and a phone call. I take emails, but emails are nice because you can go back and say, oh yeah, we talked about this. On a verbal conversation, sometimes things will get lost. I don't remember talking about that. So text messages and stuff are sometimes very good, but I still am the type of guy that likes the personal handshake. Pay me when I get done with the gig. You don't have to put anything down. I'm very flexible. I'm one guy, usually if it's a big event like a wedding or something, and it's like, man, there's talking about hundreds of people involved, and if the musician can't make it, which I'm happy to say I've only missed maybe 2 gigs in the last 15 years. I'm never sick. I don't get it. I try and stay healthy, but I've never missed a show because I've been ill. And the only time I've missed them is because I didn't mark them down right, or I double booked, for some reason. So, but I like to do business, look you in the eye and give you a handshake, and it's like the old fashioned way, I guess.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Paul, for being here. I appreciate it very much. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm looking forward to visiting with you and Robert again sometime, especially sitting down and playing some guitar with Robert. I was amazed. So
yes. Well, thanks for being here with me today. Let's continue the conversation, shall we? Hop over to Facebook and post what your biggest takeaway is from today's show in the Live Full, Work Fun Facebook group. Now, my biggest takeaway for sure is remembering the best resource we have in living a full life are the connections we make. Yeah, it's the people and the relationships that are important. Thanks for reminding me of that. Well, I do hope that you enjoyed the episode, and I'd love for you to do me this little favor. Please share this episode with at least one person who you may find it helpful and enjoyable. Just text them the link and encourage them to listen. Well, thanks again for listening, and until next time, have a fantastic week. Live full, work fun.